Hello, my name's Maggie Shaw, and I've been asked by Cheshire Libraries to help them celebrate National Storytelling Week. I would like to tell you a story I've written called Halloween Encounter. It had seemed such a great idea at the time, but that had been while the sun was still up and the three friends were sitting on their haunches around a blazing fire, with full bellies and the smell of toasted sausages in the air. In the clear light of day on the 31st of October, Bukeley Hill held no terrors. "Let's sleep here tonight under the stars," Alfie had suggested. Steve and Josh had agreed at once. It would be quite an adventure. It was amazing how quickly Steve could do something if he put his mind to it. Within minutes he had gone off on his scooter and brought back more cider, some sleeping bags and a hat from his father's lorry for a ground sheet. They sat in the gloaming as the fire burnt down to embers, drinking cider and listening to Josh telling the old tales his grandma had told him as a young boy, the same stories her grandparents had told her years before. They laughed at the centuries-old legends of witchcraft with the arrogant superiority of modern youths who are sure science has all the answers. To Alfie and Steve, the stories of the local witches' assignations with the devil seemed tame and risible, brought up as they were on Nintendo games and Hollywood blockbusters. But as the cool dark night set in and fingers of mist floated like silver ribbons in the weak moonlight, the three teenagers were not so sure. When the darkness crept closer, the threat of sinister strangers gathering silently through the wood became more real. Around them the unknown rustled behind a cloak of invisibility. Was that a ghostly figure moving between the trees? Or just the wind blowing eddies in the mist? Was that a noise, the hack of a distant sheep, or the cough of a witch gathering for a Sabbath once more from beyond the grave? Was that just a sheepdog's muffled howl from a distant farm further along the ridge, or a werewolf scenting them on the wind? "Evening, lads," said a gruff voice from behind them. They spun round in fear, alarmed that someone had crept up on them so noiselessly. In the dim light from the embers of the fire and the moonlit sky, they saw a short, stocky man with wild hair and a shadowy face. "You're out late tonight," he said, and sat down between them by the ashes of the fire. The three friends looked at each other, not sure what to say to this stranger who had joined their camp without being asked. "Who are you?" Steve demanded, his voice arrogant with bravado. "People call me Old Nick. Have you got a drink? I've a bit of a thirst on." Josh passed him their last bottle of cider. "Old Nick, isn't that what some people call the devil?" he said. Old Nick drained the bottle. "Aye," he replied, and smacked his lips. "Happen they do." He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "That's rubbish. No one believes in devils these days," Steve scoffed. "That's maybe so," Old Nick replied. He put his large paw of a hand in his right pocket and drew out 3 coins. Slowly and deliberately he handed the coins to the 3 friends, 1 apiece. He continued, "But if it is true, just think. Anything you ask for could be yours for the asking, just as long as you promise me your soul when you die." "I'd give anything for a good night's sleep," Alfie joked quickly. He looked down at the metal disc in his hand. It was about the size of a 2-pound coin, gold-coloured and pressed on both sides with a pentacle. He liked the way it shimmered. Josh took one glance at his coin and tossed it away as if it had burnt his hand. The disc glowed eerily as it spun off over the edge into the darkness. Steve and Alfie watched it with him, and then turned back to ask Old Nick a question. But the stranger had vanished. "What was all that about?" Steve asked, his tone unimpressed. "The old stories. It's happening again," Josh replied, his voice trembling. "That was the devil trying to trick you into hell." "Rubbish," Steve replied. "It was just an old tramp, trying to con us for a drink. When he'd finished all we had left, he didn't hang round long. "Who cares what he was?" Alfie said. "I'm feeling right tired now. Let's get to sleep." Alfie polished his coin, slipped it in his jacket pocket, and curled up in his sleeping bag. Soon he breathed more evenly as he fell into a long, deep sleep. Josh and Steve tried to settle too, but found the stony ground too hard, the night too chill and damp, and the unexpected encounter too unsettling for sleep. They sat and watched and waited for daylight. In the cold light of dawn, Steve looked closely at the metal disc old Nick had given him. Its tarnished gilt surface had already rusted and flaked. Josh saw Steve's rusting coin and had no regrets about throwing his away. Their overnight adventure had left an ashy back taste in his mouth. It proved to be their last adventure together before the three friends went their separate ways and embarked on the big adventure of adulthood. Steve got an apprenticeship and became a good mechanic, but somehow everything he did never really amounted to much. Josh went back to church and trained for the priesthood. He has his own parish now, not far from here. And Alfie thought up a wonderful invention which made him a lot of money and brought him a lot of success. But his success was short-lived. He lost his life in a car crash when he was only 29. The pentacle coin still gleamed in his jacket pocket the day he died. Thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed my story and it doesn't give you nightmares. If you'd like to discover more of my work, please visit www.erigendel.com, where you can explore my novels, videos and music. And look out for more storytelling videos from Cheshire East Libraries coming soon.